Here I am again, still the 30th of March. And this is another story about going back a bit in time now to 1969. And I was an uncertified third mate. I think it was my first trip to sea as an officer, as a watchkeeper. And we were heading outward bound, and we'd come off the top of Sumatra, and we were heading down the Malacca Straits, which is one of the busiest seaways in the world, probably after the English Channel. But there was hundreds and hundreds of boats going either direction, and it's not that wide. It's only maybe certain parts. It's probably less than 5-7 miles across, and it's sort of a deep water channel, roughly down the middle. And there was red and green lights everywhere, port and starboard lights and steaming lights, and it was the night time. And also using that channel was the fishing fleet of both Indonesia and Malaysia. And they went out in little sampans with a little, they had oars, but they also got around by sail. And they had a little sail up, and they were only around about 4 meters long. And some of them managed to get a little candle in a jam jar as a light, so other people could see them. But of course, a lot of times they didn't bother, and they just got on with their fishing. And we just went through dozens and dozens of these boats in all directions, and you couldn't really, you try to avoid them by altering course, but sometimes you just have to keep going, and sure enough, at the last minute they would row out the way or get their sail up and avoid the ship coming down on them. So we got to Singapore the next morning at first light, and a pilot came out to pilot us into Singapore. And he was a European. He was actually, I think he was an English pilot. And he knew the captain very well. They were old friends from way back. And as they came on board, they started talking. He got his cup of tea, and and after about 5 minutes, the pilot says to the captain, he says, "John, good trip down last night through the Straits?" And the captain said, "Yeah, there was good weather. It wasn't windy." "And was there lots of fishing boats?" the pilot says. And John, the captain, says, "Yeah, well, as usual, hundreds." "Why? Why do you ask?" "Well," he says, "between you and me," the pilot says, "before we get into alongside, it'd be a good idea to get that sail off your anchor." So they obviously managed to hit one, and let's hope the poor buggers or bugger on board managed to swim out of the way. But anyways, the sail got jammed on the anchor, and there it was for all to see. So there's another little story.